My parents told me to send them $50,000 immediately. No reason, no explanation, just ASAP in a tone that made my stomach drop. I thought someone was sick. I thought I was about to lose my father. I didn't ask questions. I booked a flight and showed up at their house without warning. What I walked into wasn't an emergency at all. It was wedding plans spread across the table, laughter in the air, and my spoiled sister, who has hated me my whole life, showing off a ring bought with my fear. That was the moment I realized this wasn't about family. Before I keep going, hit like, tell me where you're listening from, and share how you'd react if the people who raised you used your love like this. The family hierarchy. My name is Samantha. Growing up, I learned very early what my role in the family was. I was the one who noticed things, the one who stepped in before anyone asked. If something broke, I cleaned it. If someone was late, I waited. If a problem appeared, it somehow landed in my hands. On the outside, our family looked ordinary, a quiet suburban house, holiday dinners that smelled like roasted turkey and pine-scented candles, and framed photos on the hallway wall updated every few years. But inside that house, there was a hierarchy everyone understood without ever saying it out loud. My father believed in order, his word ended conversations. My mother believed in harmony, or at least the appearance of it. She smoothed things over, reframed conflicts, and quietly decided who needed to sacrifice so the house could stay calm. And then there was my younger sister, the center of gravity, the one everyone bent toward. I was 5 years older, which meant I became useful early. I walked her to school. I waited outside her classrooms. I learned how to reheat leftovers and how to apologize even when I wasn't wrong. If she cried, it was an emergency. If I cried, it was an attitude problem. I remember one afternoon in middle school when I missed an after-school art program because my sister didn't feel like walking home alone. Another time, a teacher praised my grades at a parent meeting, and my mother just smiled before immediately changing the subject to my sister's dance recital. These weren't dramatic moments, they were quiet and repetitive, and that's what made them sink in. By the time I left for college, I already knew two things. First, nothing would ever be handed to me. Second, if I wanted a different life, I'd have to build it without help. I worked, studied, stayed invisible, and eventually moved to a bigger city where no one knew my family name. From the outside, it looked like distance. From the inside, it felt like relief. The emergency call. Still, no matter how far I went, that old instinct stayed with me, the one that said, if your parents ask, you show up. If they sound scared, you listen. If there's a crisis, you handle it. That instinct is exactly what brought me back home when they asked for that money. After that call, I didn't send the money right away. That alone was new for me. For years, when my parents asked, I reacted first and thought later. But this time, something felt off in a way I couldn't explain. I called my mother back and asked what happened. She didn't answer directly. She said my father was under a lot of stress. She mentioned bills and repairs, the same vague phrases she'd always used when she wanted me to stop asking questions. When I tried to get specifics, she sighed and said, "Do we really need to get into all that right now?" My father got on the phone next. His voice was firm, almost irritated. He said it was urgent and that I was overthinking it, that if I trusted them, I'd just help and we'd talk later. The call ended with him reminding me that family steps up when it matters. I sat there staring at my phone long after the screen went dark. On paper, everything sounded familiar, but the timing didn't. They hadn't called like this in years, not since I'd moved away, and certainly not since they realized I was doing well on my own. They had never asked for that kind of money before without at least giving me a story to go with it. The unannounced arrival. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, my mind filled in the blanks: hospital rooms, paperwork, a future where I hesitated too long and regretted it forever. By morning, I knew I couldn't just wire the money and hope for the best. So, I made a decision I'd never made before. I booked a flight. I didn't tell them I was coming. I told myself it was because I wanted to surprise them, but the truth was I wanted to see things with my own eyes. I wanted to walk into that house and feel the atmosphere for myself. The flight felt longer than it was. I watched families in the terminal and wondered how many of them had secrets waiting at home. As I pulled into my parents' neighborhood, I noticed something strange right away. Every light in the house was on. Not the harsh, panicked kind of light I'd imagined, but warm, inviting light, like company had just arrived. I sat in the car for a moment, engine still running, trying to calm my breathing. Whatever was happening inside, I was about to find out. I let myself in. The first thing I noticed was the smell: fresh coffee, sugar, and something warm in the oven. Not antiseptic, not fear. My mother looked up from the kitchen island and froze for a split second before forcing a smile. "Samantha! You didn't say you were coming." "I wanted to make sure everything was okay," I said. She exchanged a glance with my father. It was quick and practiced, the kind of look people share when they are already aligned. My father was sitting comfortably in his chair, flipping through a magazine like it was any other afternoon. "I thought you said this was urgent," I said, keeping my voice even. "It is," my mother replied too quickly. "Just not the way you're imagining." That's when I saw them. Stacked neatly at the end of the table were glossy envelopes, color samples, and a thick binder filled with tabs. My sister walked in a moment later, phone in hand, glowing. She stopped when she saw me, then smiled like this was a coincidence she hadn't planned for. "You're here early," she said. I followed her gaze down to her hand. The ring caught the light from the ceiling fixture, sharp, heavy, and expensive. It looked completely out of place next to the story of struggle I'd been told. The confrontation. Clarity hit me then. They hadn't called because they were scared, they called because they knew I would come. Because I always had. My mother started explaining how expensive weddings are these days and how lucky my sister was. My father just nodded, waiting for me to catch up. "So," I said, nodding toward the binder. "This is the emergency." My mother sighed, as if I were the one being difficult. "We didn't want to worry you. Planning a wedding is stressful, and your sister has been overwhelmed." "Overwhelmed?" I looked at my sister. She lifted her hand, letting the ring catch the light again. "Isn't it beautiful?" He really went all out. I turned back to my parents. "You asked me for $50,000. You said it couldn't wait. You didn't tell me why." My father cleared his throat. "We didn't think details mattered. You're doing well. You can afford it." There it was. Not a request, but an assumption. "For what?" I asked. "Flowers? A venue? A dress?" "Don't be dramatic," my mother snapped. "I'm not being dramatic," I said quietly. "I flew across the country because I thought someone was in danger." My sister rolled her eyes. "You're always like this, making everything about you." That sentence unlocked a door I'd kept closed for years. "I didn't make this about me," I said. "You did, when you lied." She laughed. "Lied? Mom said you'd help. You always help." I looked at my mother. "How long?" How long have you been planning to ask me for this? When they tried to brush it off, I pulled out my phone. I've kept track, I said. Every payment, every transfer I've sent you for repairs and bills. It adds up to a lot more than $50,000. My mother went pale. Why would you do that? Because I stopped trusting vague answers. I looked at my sister. While you were telling me you were struggling, you were posting pictures of expensive dinners, shopping bags, and weekend trips. I was noticing. My father's voice hardened. You're crossing a line. No, I said. I finally see the line. Do you have any idea how many things I gave up so you wouldn't be inconvenienced? My sister shrugged. That's what older sisters do. The breaking point. Something inside me went cold. Then listen carefully. I'm not doing it anymore. I'm not sending the money. My sister's face twisted. You can't just decide that. You're ruining my wedding. I didn't plan it. I didn't promise anything. My mother reached for my arm, but I stepped back. We need that money, she pleaded. We already told people. That sounds like a you problem, I replied. My father pointed at the door. If you walk away from this, don't expect us to forgive you. I nodded. That's fine. As I grabbed my bag, my hands were steady. This ends now, I said. No more payments, no more emergencies, no more guilt. I walked out. The messages started before I reached the end of the driveway, emotional paragraphs from my mother, cold insults from my father, and screaming accusations from my sister. I didn't reply to any of them. A new chapter. The next morning, I canceled the recurring payments. It took less than a minute. Word spread through the family, and I told the truth to anyone who asked, calmly, without exaggeration. The wedding changed. The venue was downgraded. The guest list shrank. Back in my own city, my life kept moving. The silence from my family was strange at first, but then it became peaceful. One night, I realized I wasn't bracing for the next demand anymore. For the first time, my life felt honest. I didn't win an apology, but I gained something better. I chose myself. I didn't lose my family that day, I just stopped letting them take me down with them. Real love doesn't drain you, and it doesn't threaten you with guilt. Walking away wasn't cruel, it was the first honest thing I'd done in years. If this story hit close to home, you're not alone. Share your thoughts in the comments, tell me where you're listening from, and hit subscribe so you don't miss the next story.